He said, "Drop it." And then all he did was pull out a gun and started shooting. And then they all surrounded him with guns, and then they shot him, and I heard like 3 shots.
It is a scene no child should ever bear witness. Tragedy shattering a peaceful Sunday morning service.
So like the gunman was like just sitting there for a good minute or two, and he was just standing there, and the gunman stood up and turned around to him. So probably like 3 feet away from my papa.
Chris Wallace describing the horror when a gunman shot his grandfather, Tony Wallace, inside this church near Fort Worth, Texas. Live stream video capturing every moment.
It's kind of like heartbreaking, but sometimes you gotta be strong about it and just keep on going.
His papa, one of 2 parishioners killed this weekend. And tonight, new details on the shooter and the man who brought him down, now held as a hero for preventing a much bigger tragedy inside the West Freeway Church of Christ.
The citizens who were inside that church undoubtedly saved 242 other parishioners.
This shooting joining a growing list of attacks involving places of worship from Charleston to Pittsburgh, and the problem appears to be growing. Sunday's shooting was the 2nd attack on a religious gathering in less than 24 hours. In a Jewish community just outside New York City, a man stabbed 5 people as they celebrated Hanukkah. Back in Texas, authorities identifying 43-year-old Keith Thomas Kananen as the shooter. They say he has had run-ins with law enforcement in the past, but they have not figured out a motive for this attack.
Today, evil walked boldly among us. But let me remind you, good people raised up and stopped it before it got worse.
Video shows that it was 10:50 Sunday morning when the shooter entered the church.
I mean, the shooter was sitting next to my mother. She knew from growing up at the church that she didn't recognize this gentleman.
Over 200 parishioners were in attendance, including 71-year-old Jack Wilson, a reserve deputy sheriff.
We noticed that his right hand was visible, but his left hand never was visible. So I'm assuming at this point that the shotgun was in his pocket with all the way up under his armpit, and he's holding it in place with his left hand.
In the video, you see the gunman there wearing a dark hoodie sitting in the back pew. He then gets up, walks to the back, and appears to say something to a deacon, and then pulls out a long gun, aims, and begins to shoot. The attack lasting just 6 seconds.
That's a long 6 seconds. And a lot of things go down in 6 seconds.
Wilson, who is in charge of church security, pulls out his own gun, fires a single shot, and kills the gunman before he could harm anyone else.
Active threat, 1900 South Las Vegas Trail.
Cries amidst the chaos erupting. At least 5 other parishioners pulled out handguns and carefully approached the gunman. Toward the back of the church, one man kicks away the suspect's gun and picks it up. All of it happening as parishioners duck in the pews and children run for safety.
We're going to need help with patient care.
It was a sad thing that he had to come into the congregation and hurt people, and it's a sad thing that we had to hurt him.
Authorities and parishioners now praising Wilson's split-second decision to intervene.
I don't feel like I'm a hero. I was doing what I needed to do to protect the people of the congregation. And in the same scenario, I would do it again.
Wilson, who was a former law enforcement officer, also trained the church's volunteer security team. He says it is not just about having the gun, but knowing how to use it.
My philosophy is if you're going to wear a firearm for self-protection of yourself and others, you need to be proficient. And if you produce it, what I tell the students in my classes, you have to be willing to use it if you produce it, if it doesn't stop the threat. And that's what I live by, that's what I teach. Otherwise, there's no sense in wearing it.
The heroism by Wilson and fellow churchgoers highlighting the passage of a recent law allowing licensed Texans to carry weapons into churches and other places of worship.
The obvious pro of having armed individuals in the church is that they were able to immediately return fire and stop the suspect from killing other people. The downside is you're really talking about shooting in a combat environment. And the problem with that is even those of us who have been trained to do that will make mistakes. So the big concern is crossfire and shooting innocent people. You have to accept the reality that if those people aren't highly trained and know how to function in a combat crisis situation, you can have fatalities that were not intended.
We have 6 ambulances en route.
That new law passed in the aftermath of the deadliest shooting in Texas history, also at a church. In 2017, the massacre at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs killed 26 people. A gunman opened fire during the Sunday morning service. My colleague Matt Gutman spoke with a survivor.
When you're like this and you're covering your head, what are you thinking?
I shouldn't have gone to church that day. He told me not to go. Let's not go, let's just wait till next week. And I'm never gonna see my grandchildren again. And I'm gonna die.
It wasn't until local resident Steve Wilford, who was armed and outside the church, opened fire, that the gunman began to retreat.
As he exited the church, a local resident grabbed his rifle and engaged that suspect.
I'm no hero. I am not. I just wish I could have gotten there faster.
While an autopsy confirmed that Wilford did shoot the gunman, the attacker ultimately killed himself.
2 gunshot wounds were from the armed citizen. One of those was in the leg and the other one was in the torso.
At the time, Wilford was a concerned neighbor, but he has since become a member of the First Baptist Church he fought to protect. And today, he tells ABC he's headed to White Settlement, Texas as a representative of that church.
With my soul.
In solidarity with the residents grieving the violence and tragedy that tried to bring their community to a halt. Tonight, behind closed doors, this church finishing the service that was tragically cut short on Sunday, remembering those lives they lost and honoring the brave who saved so many. For Nightline, I'm Marcus Moore in White Settlement, Texas.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.